I've been in dogs since 1991. We breed dogs that we want to train. I was out here in western Nebraska riding Harleys and training dogs. I don't sugarcoat anything, and if you don't like it, tough.
Hello and welcome to Season 2, Episode 1 of the Flatlander Kennels podcast with Chris Jobman. It has been a while since we have recorded, and we are so happy to be back and recording. So you guys can just expect that there is going to be a stream of episodes coming out consistently. So if you want to get in on making sure you hear all those, come over to Facebook, join the group, the Flatlander Kennels podcast group with Chris Jobman. So we're really excited about Season 2. And here he is, the star of the show. How's it going, Chris?
I'm sad. Duck season's over. I'm on suicide watch. My wife is taking my shoelaces away, my belts away. It's a sad day right now. I'm doing well, other than I'm sad.
So you got a little duck depression, do you? Back to the grind.
It's horrible. Every time this year, it's terrible, and I apologize to everybody about not getting podcasts out since November. We had a crazy run to, we had the Grand, we had the Master National, we went on vacation, and we got home, and duck season started, and our club got cranking, and LA's like, when are we going to record? I'm like, we'll give it maybe later, and all of a sudden Season 2 rolls around, and we're good to go now. But
yeah,
I apologize. I get wrapped up with duck season and all that sort of thing, and kind of forget about this sort of deal. But I'm kind of sad, but I'm kind of ready to get going too. It's dogs are coming back, and time to get cranking.
I can tell you that when I started getting into hunt test stuff, I was like, you know what, I'm going to try to get her HRCH title, and then I'll probably just quit. And I had no idea. That I was going to love it like this. And I genuinely am so looking forward to starting back up with the training and my little group. And hopefully I'll come back out there again this year. I'm thrilled. I'm excited.
Well, you better come out this year. You better make a couple runs. We got some videos to do and YouTube stuff channel to do. And
that's the plan.
Yeah, it's a plan. I bought a drone that I don't know how to fly. It's in my closet. It's waiting for you to come out. But no, it's, now that duck season's over, I wish you could just go to 70 degrees every single day and be done with it. But, it's still kind of a hard time of the year for us. And we're getting ready to get cranking again. Like I said, dogs are coming back. We're getting ready to take a trip to Texas this year, like we always do at the end of this month. We'll be gone for a couple months. We'll run the Grand and come home and get cranking here. And
so slow down on that for a second. So when do you go to Texas? How many dogs are you taking? And when does your actually testing start leading up to the Grand?
We are going to leave for Texas, Dan and I. Dan is a new trainer that we hired, Dan Newman. We're happy to have him jump on board with us. He's a new trainer we just hired. So he is the guinea pig. He thinks he loves training dogs. You just wait till he gets into all this. But he's going to go to Texas with me, and we're going to take 2 trucks and 2 trailers, and we're going to take probably right around 35 dogs, and we'll get down there, and we'll spend 2 months or so down there, and Andrew will stay here with his helper, and he will train all the babies coming up, start building all the babies for us. Dan will go down there and kind of get his feet wet and learn how the system goes. And, Dan's going to be our new baby dog trainer. We're going to teach him how to do everything we need to teach him to do. And then Andrew will take him under his wing and help him. And things are looking great as far as that goes. But we'll go down to Texas for 2 months. We might run 1 or 2 HRC tests while we're down there. It depends on the timing and the dogs and that sort of thing. But our main focus when we get down there, it's like a doggy boot camp. And there's nothing else to do down there besides train dogs. We train dogs 6-7 days a week, run a test or 2 maybe. And we're down there basically getting them prepared to run the Grand, our Grand crew. And then we'll go to the Grand. We'll run that, which I believe is in Georgia. And once that's over, we'll come home and we'll get cranking here in tests right off the bat, beginning of May, all the way until through October.
So the dogs that go to Texas are they're the big boys,
Not
the
always.
grand
So
dogs.
this year, no, they are. So we're gonna have a mixture. About half of them are the big boys and girls, and the other half are the young HR title dogs up to really young finish dogs. So we'll have a mixture of HR-ish senior hunter type dogs, all the way up to baby HRCHs, early master hunters, all the way up to like the flashes of the kennel. So there's going to be a good diversity on that. And when we get down there, it's really good for the big dogs when they get down there. But I'll be honest with you, it doesn't take long for them to get back in the swing of things. It really doesn't. This trip is really, really good for the younger dogs, the young advanced dogs, the HR dogs, the young HRCHs. This trip is really, really good for them because we can really focus on them and building their training repertoire, so to speak. And those dogs we see jump leaps and bounds on this trip because they're like the young, they're more than a transition type dog, but you see them really jump leaps and bounds on this trip.
And when the dog, I know I was gonna ask, how many of these dogs are coming back from owners, and how many of them have been continually with you? What's that kind of mix?
Most of them we're waiting for them to come back. They'll be falling in the whole month of February. They'll be dropping off every week. A few of them have stayed, and a few of them got an early jump. Like, Zach's dog, Oakley from Texas, she got up here a month or two ago and got an early start. We just got her. She was with another trainer. They did a really good job with her, and they don't really run tests anymore, so she jumped in with us, and she like early enrolled, so to speak, like for football. She early enrolled in December. And so that when we got her now, when we head down there, we've already trained her a bunch. We got to know her, worked out some of her quirks, and now we're not trying to figure her out in Texas. She's just going to hit the ground running.
What level dog is she?
About a seasoned-ish level dog.
Okay.
About a seasoned level dog, and she's going to be a nice dog. She's very young, and she's ready to roll. A lot of these, younger up-and-coming studs we got, like Chris Tracy's Preacher dog, and those dogs are HRCHs and really, really nice, and they had a heck of a hunt season, man. They have picked up piles and piles of birds, and he's done a nice job of keeping him under control. So some of these dogs that are coming back, some of them will be messes, absolute messes, and some of them will be pretty dang good. And for the most of the part here, I'm expecting most of these dogs to come back in really good shape, and even the youngest ones, because I've got my people really convinced on, it's great to hunt your dog and it's great to do all these things, but you need to keep a standard. And if the better the standards you keep, the easier it is for us to fix and or keep going, because we don't have to fix a lot of things that way. And it's going to be cheaper on the pocketbook, so we can hit the ground running and train and not worry about fixing problems. So it'll be really interesting to see some of these dogs that when they go down there, especially the ones that come back from hunting season, what they're like. Because I know a lot of my owners really, really tried as hard as they could to, tie their dogs out so they don't break if they start breaking. They really try to keep the standard high. And I'll bet you this is one of our better groups of young dogs that come back from hunting season for us.
What is the most common regression that a dog that's been with you for a year, let's say it's either a seasoned or an HRCH, and it goes back with the owner, and as we know, all of our dogs, when we hunt them, they're going to regress some, but what is the most common regression when you get a dog back?
Lack of control. Just 100% lack of control. And what I mean, and that's every aspect, even from heeling to the line to maybe sitting steady and quietly to when you run a blind retrieve, they used to give you that really nice angle cast into the wind when they went home. Now they don't, because let's face it, hunting blind is a little bit different than a training blind, because you're going to put that dog downwind of the bird to try to find it during hunting season. So you give a 45-degree angle, and in training, we expect the dog to take a 45-degree angle. In a hunting situation, you give a 45-degree angle, and he gives you a 20, and it kind of scalps and pushes downwind of the bird, but then finds the bird. So now it's rewarded for giving you that scallopy cast, right? So a lot of that stuff is goes away really quick. And the dogs that have hunted a lot, especially the pheasant hunting dogs, those dogs are they're so hard to get the cast back into the wind and those sort of things. Was really independent dogs, but just the overall lack of control and marking. Like a lot of times, if you see problems in marking, it's usually they're checking up short. They're not driving to the bird because they haven't marked out at 200 yards in a long time. They picked up everything between 30 and 50 yards or closer in decoys. So to get them to mark is another one of those things. So
right. Let's make a shift because I want to announce all of you guys our very next episode. We're going to go in depth on tips to get your dog back into hunt test form. So we don't want to go too far into that now. That whole next episode is going to be devoted to taking your dog from hunting and getting it ready back into test form. So be ready for that. That'll be out on the next episode. Let's jump into, because we never actually discussed it. We had planned on it. If you have any more kennel updates, feel free to add it in here. But I know everyone is wanting to hear, how did the Grand go? How'd the Master National go before hunting season?
Overall they went pretty well. I always say that I'm always disappointed when it's over. Even a couple years ago when I passed 24 out of 28 in the Master National, I was disappointed I didn't pass 28 out of 28. And I'm always disappointed no matter how well we do. We passed about 50% of our dogs in the Grand, about 50% of our dogs in the Master National. I'm really proud of the ones that passed. I'm proud of the ones that didn't pass, because if they're going, they deserve to be there. We don't take them just to take them. But, we titled our 54th Grand Champion. Big shout out goes to Darren Toft and Indy. She got her Grand Retriever Champion title. And then Grace, who was owned by Ty Johnson, she got her Grand Retriever Champion title. So we titled our 54th Grand Retriever Champion. And, we passed quite a few. And it was the Grand really, both of those events were very, very, very different from each other. They were very difficult for one, and a lot of the marking setups in those tests were to be nice, challenging. That's all I'm going to say is some of those testing setups were very, very quote unquote challenging. I'm trying to be very nice about this, but
more so than on a normal Grand.
Yes. And the National, both of them. More so, yes. I'm going to be very nice. I'm not going to get into it. But, I love everything. But, everybody puts on a good event. But some of those tests were very, very challenging. And just seeing the birds is half the battle now, it seems to be, in both of those events. And if you can't see it, you can't mark it. But they were very challenging. Do
you think that is this intentional, where they feel like too many dogs are passing, or what is the reason? What is the reasoning behind a setup like that?
Very, very challenging tests.
See, I needed to be down there so I could have been in on the side conversations.
I'm not going to get into all that, but
we'll talk off air.
There is a faction out there that too many dogs are passing. I don't want to say necessarily the Grand, but there's not too many dogs passing the Grand. That just doesn't happen, because their tests are so hard. They are so hard. And if your dog passes the Grand, it deserves to pass Grand. Now, if a higher percentage, if you get 20%, 25% past the Grand, people think that's like a lot, because back in the day it was 10, 12%. Well,
yeah,
there's more dogs entered. They're better dogs. They're better training. That's just going to happen. The tests at the Grand are extremely difficult. And now there's a big faction out there that too many dogs are passing the Master National. And so they quote unquote, they put it on us at this Master National. They really did. And about the same percentage passed this Master National as they have the previous Master Nationals. So that kind of thinking needs to go out the window, because they put it on us, both your Grand and the Master National, they put it to us. And the same sort of passing percentage prevailed. So that just goes to tell you that you can do whatever you want to do. The dogs that are supposed to pass will pass. That's just how there is to it.
Have you seen a level of training? I don't know quite how to put this. So it's like when you started 20 years ago, do you feel like there's more people training dogs to a higher level now than 20 years ago? Or is it about the same?
Absolutely.
And why do you think that is? Why do you think that is?
I think there's a lot of different reasons for that. I think technology has gotten a lot better. And when I say technology, I'm talking, now you have wingers that are remote controlled, that everybody can run a remote control winger. You don't even need a thrower. E-collars are, a lot more sensitive. You can train all the sensitive dogs with e-collars. So the dogs that were super sensitive, that used to get washed out 20, 30 years ago, still make it. And technology has gotten better. I think the material that people can have at their fingertips now with the new age of computers and all that stuff,
right.
I'm telling you, it is incredible. Like, it is absolutely incredible, because back in the day, it was all books and maybe a video or two. But now the material that people can get their hands on is absolutely incredible. And if you have some patience, you can really do some great things with the material you can get your hands on, whether it be this podcast or seminars or Freddie King's deal, there's so much material out there, so that's getting better. And I think there's a lot of dogs are just better. Like, football players are bigger, stronger, faster.
Right.
Dogs just get better. And people get better. And I just think the game is evolving because back in the field trial days, back in the 80s, the field trials looked like big master tests. Right? Now a field trial is unbelievable. If people in the 80s would look at field trials nowadays, they would be flabbergasted. They would be like, "What the heck?" They wouldn't have any idea. But that's what I'm saying. Dogs are getting better. Trainers are getting better. Technology is getting better. It's all getting better, and the tests now are coming up to. They're trying to match technology. Dogs right. Better. All that's better. Well, you can only do so much, right? So the Grand National this year had some very, 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 very hard tests, and our pass rate stayed basically the same. So that's just telling you the dogs that deserve to pass are going to pass.
Yeah,
there's so many good dogs. It's back in 20, 25 years ago. I saw my very first finish test. They ran a 100-yard water blind, and they probably had 15, 20 whistles on it. And I thought it was the greatest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Nowadays, I'm running water blinds now that I wouldn't even have fathomed 20 years ago that I could be running them today. What I think is a hard water blind now, it's an open blind like it was 20 years ago. Things are getting so much, I don't want to say easier, but methods are getting better. Trainers are getting better. They're using their head more. The dogs are getting better. They're being bred. Most of if you find the right ones, they're being bred better. Everything's better about it.
Yeah. Anything else you want to say about the Grand or Master National?
No, we enjoyed that trip. It was very challenging, like I keep saying. It was, and I'm happy with the dogs that passed both. We had a lot of dogs that passed both of them. We have some really, really good young dogs coming through the system. 2-year-olds that passed, like the National, like Granger. He passed the National as a 2-year-old. Ruger passed Grand as a baby, as barely a 2-year-old. We've got some really, really young dogs. Freddie, we got some great young dogs coming up. And it's funny to me because you see a lot of these 2-year-olds, these barely 2-year-olds that we have coming up, their level of talent is incredible compared to like a 2-year-old 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredible. And I don't know if it's got to be breeding environment, genetics. It's got to be training. It's got to be a little bit, because I'm going to tell you what these 24-month-old dogs are doing nowadays compared to one 20 years ago. They're not even on the same planet.
Yeah.
And Chris Aiken and I talk about this all the time. All of the great dogs of our past, he had the Boomers and I had the O'Malleys and Jakes, and he had all these great dogs. And we always talk about this, like we hold these super great dogs to such a high esteem in our brains, And we always talked like, were they really that good? Were they really as good as what we're standing over today?
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to compare, right? It's hard to. Michael Jordan's the best basketball player ever, but he didn't play when Wilt played. Like it's a very, you don't know if they could have been that good or not. But I don't know if they are where that or could be that good today.
Yeah,
that makes am I making
sense? Yeah, perfect
and
sense.
And it's funny you think about that, but it's a very unique time in the dog world because I'll tell you, I've watched in the Grands and the Master National. I watch some of the amateur dogs that I see coming through there. They are so good, Elliott. I'm telling you, some of the amateur handlers are getting to be so good, and a lot of it has to do, toot my own horn. Some of the amateurs that I help are really, really good because they're taking it really serious.
Right.
Like they literally are taking it. Back in the day, they're like, oh yeah, we got softball at 5. Well, maybe I'll train. Nowadays, these amateurs, because the sport is so expensive, right? You got to run the Grand, run the Master National, chase the qualifications. The sport is so expensive that if you don't give 110%, you're wasting your money.
Mm-hmm.
You just complete. So some of these amateurs I see coming through the ranks are so good, male and female, because they're students of the game now.
Right.
Back in the day, you didn't see these number of amateurs 20 years ago that were really students of the game. You saw them running weekend tests, but you didn't see them there's amateurs now that have chassis mounts and trailers, and they're getting so good because they're taking it so serious because they have materials at their fingertips that are making them better.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
well, I know
you can't wait to train.
Yeah.
Like you're ate up by it. It's my whole point.
Yeah. When I trained my first dog I did any training on, I had the water dog book and that was it.
Yeah.
And then with Georgie, I won't include you because that's a different deal because we kind of had the deal working together. If I was just the average guy, I used Freddie's system, and then you have his Facebook group where literally you go and ask a question. People are chiming in right away. Even Freddie chimes in. The difference between having just a book in your hand versus high quality trainers that are actually going to say, hey, this. I can't imagine how much better of a trainer that makes you.
Oh, the material at your fingertips is astonishing to me. And now if you look at, back in the day, I remember seeing Chris Aiken's 18-hole gooseneck trailer 20 years ago. I thought that was the coolest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. That was the first gooseneck I ever saw, right? And then I bought a gooseneck not far after him, and there was only a handful of goosenecks in the entire country, right? Mm-hmm. Now everybody's got one.
Yeah.
So and now there's a pro. You can't swing a dead cat without hitting a pro trainer anymore. Yeah. And there's a quote unquote pro trainers and the professional trainers are two very different people. But there's lots of really good professional dog trainers within an hour or two of drive almost of everybody.
Yeah.
And back in the day, 20 years ago, you didn't see that. So now, like you could train with your group, or you come out here, or you have these, good professional dog trainers at your fingertips a lot of times. Where back in the day, you didn't have that. All you had was, like you said, your water dog book.
Yeah, and you have a question, there's no one to answer it.
Exactly. And now you can it's instant.
Yeah.
It's instant. So be careful about that. Be careful.
I'm hoping you will answer this question. I don't know if you will, but I'm curious to ask it. What's the first dog that pops into your head if I say the GOAT of retrieving dogs, greatest of all time? Yours or otherwise?
Field trials or hunt tests?
Just first dog that pops in your mind. Or you can do one for each.
The very first one that pops into my mind, there's two of them actually, is Chopper, Club Me's Road Warrior, and then there's another one, Code Blue.
Give me short background of those dogs. Like who trained them?
Pop in my head instantly. They're both field trial dogs. I own a dog named Breaker, who was probably the nicest dog I've ever touched in my entire life. I keep saying that, but I got Flash laying here on the floor. I keep saying Breaker's the best dog I ever touched, and I'm looking at Flash, thinking, was Breaker really better than Flash?
Right.
Or is Breaker really better than Jet? I don't. But for some reason, in my mind, Breaker sticks out as my best ever.
Yeah.
I don't know if it now. So Chopper won the National Open. He was an NFC at 3 years old. Unheard of, insane, incredible. And I like his style of dog. His style of dog was Breaker, which was a lot of go, a lot of power, a lot of passion, a lot of want to. And then you have Code Blue, who was before Chopper, long before Chopper, and is an incredible animal, sired incredible dogs, like, Spree Out of the Woods and Grady, and he sired all these great, great animals, but they're probably not the best ever.
Mm-hmm.
There's probably a dog today that is better than them, but
just because of the advancement in the breeding and the line,
like we talked about, you just don't know who but in my mind, if I could own a puppy out of any two dogs in the entire world in history of dogs, my first pick would be Chopper. My second pick would be Code Blue, without question, without a doubt.
How about trainers? What name of trainer pops into your mind? The GOAT.
To me, and I'll say this to the day I die. To me, the greatest dog trainer in the world is somebody we don't even know. And what I mean by that is, it is some hunt test guy or gun dog guy who is feeding their family by training every single dog that comes through the door, and they're pulling the choke, pumping the gas to making these dogs work. They're not the best bred dog. They're not the most talented dog. They're not the most expensive dog, but they're making a poor dog, a decent dog, a decent dog, a good dog, a good dog, a great dog, a great dog, a legend.
Mm-hmm.
That's the best dog trainer in the world. Because you got to understand something. These field trial and or hunt test people like myself or whoever, we are getting, especially the field trial world, they are getting the cream of the crop.
Right.
The absolute best athletes the dog world can produce. Correct?
Yeah.
Now, to me, my personal opinion, the greatest field trial trainer of all time is Danny Farmer and or Judy Aycock. Just Judy basically taught Danny. Danny took it to the next level. Judy was an amateur. But those two are probably the two best amateur pros in the field trial world ever. There's a handful of hunt test guys that I think are fantastic, some of the best ever. You got the Chris Aikens of the world, you got the Stephen Dernishes of the world. I'm going to miss somebody, and I apologize, but those I think are some of the best hunt test trainers in the world. So, and or myself maybe down the road, I don't know, but I think that you can't. I think the best dog trainer is a hunt test guy. I think it's a hunt test guy that is bringing in these dogs and building something out of nothing.
Right.
In my opinion.
That's interesting.
And they're doing it just because they love to do it. And we may not even know who it is. But I know that's a terrible way to look at things, but I honestly believe that. I just think it's something we don't even know that's just really, really good with dogs. Just really good with, just knows how to, and you don't have to be on the road to hunt test to prove that. It's just when you get a dog in that, won't retrieve anything, the next thing you know, you got to run blind retrieves.
Mm-hmm.
And that's those guys, because those field trial guys, they won't do that. They're like, get me another one. Get me another one. Get me another. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
they weed them out fast.
They do, but but they are very specific in what they need.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm not saying that they couldn't do that. They just don't, because they don't have to. Right. So
it's like, it would be like a Division I football coach being like, all right, you're not good enough to be here.
Yeah, it's like Rudy, right? So it's a hard thing to say, but like I said, field trial world to me, there's a handful, Danny Farmer, Judy Aycock, Mike Lardy, Rex Carr, those people revolutionized and changed the retriever world forever. And so you can't say any one of them the greatest one ever, but they revolutionized the dog world. They really did. And I'll tell you what, this is a crazy thought. Do you remember? And I'll tell you what, one person who probably has done more for the retriever world, total everybody, and it's somebody probably everybody's forgot about, is Justin Tackett. And I know you don't know who that is, but Shannon Nardi owns the SRS, right? And there used to be a show, and Justin and her kind of, Justin used to help her with the SRS, and he used to work for Avery, and we were Team Water Dog, and me and Chris Aiken, and all these guys were, and he was kind of our quote-unquote boss, sort of, and he kind of ran around with the SRS, and he did a lot of these things. Well, he used to have a TV show called Water Dog, and it was him and Yella doing their thing on TV, and he brought the SRS, and him and Shannon brought the SRS to TV. And then Water Dog to TV. And so they brought the retriever games and the retriever world to your lap.
Mm-hmm.
That got more people to buy a retriever than you could even imagine. It was a monster deal. And I'm going to tell you right now, Danny Farmer and Mike Lardy, they brought a fraction of the people into the retriever world that Justin Tackett and Shannon Nardi brought in.
Just because their exposure.
Just because of their exposure.
Was that on ESPN or?
I brought to you every Saturday morning.
ESPN?
It was on the Outdoor Channel. It was on Pursuit Channel, the ESPN Outdoor Games. That they literally brought the retriever world to your lap every Saturday. So you had the Water Dog was a hunting show, right? Justin and Yella travel in the country hunting, and then a little training tip on there. And then you had the SRS on TV back in the day when we all used to run the SRS, back when I ran it, on TV. And there would be people setting their VCRs to record Water Dog and the Super Retriever series.
Mm-hmm.
And those two brought that to the world, brought the retriever world to your feet, that right to your lap. And they touched so many people, and that's what really got it going. And people don't understand and remember that. But that was a huge deal back then. And now those people have got kids and grandkids who are in the dog world because of them.
Yeah.
Not because of Mike Lardy and Danny Farmer, but because of that. So the dog world has changed immensely over the years. And we owe a lot to some of these people that, people forget who they actually are and what they did for us, or they want to forget. And it's just not how it's going to be. You got to give where credit's due, So,
well, let's go ahead and make a transition and talk a little bit about hunting season. Now, Chris and I just recorded a full podcast episode over on my other podcast, North American Waterfowler Podcast. So if you really want to get into a full discussion of our past hunting season, check it out over there. But I do want to I want to make a little more focus of this one. How was your hunting season? And highlight what dogs hunted most often with you. Are there any things you're really proud of, any things that surprised you that maybe dogs didn't do quite as well at as what you thought? And then I'm going to share kind of Georgie's season.
Yeah, our season was pretty good. The weather was funky. It was like that for everybody. It was super mild, and it was super cold, and it was super mild. And we did pretty good overall as a club. Everybody knows I got that club. And we did a good job with that. And we had a great time. Our hunts were fun. We had a great time. We shot plenty of birds. Our average bird per hunt was pretty good. Our average, birds per person was pretty good. The biggest thing, nobody got hurt. No person or dog got hurt. Everybody had a great time. And the main dog I hunt, and everybody knows, is a dog named Flash. So that is my main hunting dog. He rides in my back seat all year long. He passed the grand again. So he's a 6-time Grand Retriever champion, and he's an M&H, and he's QA2, and he's one of the finest hunting dogs, I've ever been around and ever seen for what I do. And he's just a great, great dog. Sired great puppies, everything about him. I don't have a bad thing to say about Flash. But, and there's a new dog that I got coming up and everybody remembers the dog I used to own named Jet. who was a 9-time Grand Herd Retriever champion, M&H, and he died at the Master National a couple years ago, and from stomach twist. And I got his son. His name is Vader, who I bought from a client of mine. He just kind of got out of the game, and I couldn't let Vader sit around, so I ended up buying Vader from him. And Vader is an HRCH master hunter. He's got a Master National pass, and he's qualified all age. And he is Flash's quote-unquote replacement. Mm-hmm. So I hunted both of them exclusively, honestly. Andrew took some young client dogs out like Rain and all them dogs. And we hunted Shaker a few times too. Shaker did a good job for us. But Flash and Vader got most of the work. And Vader did a really, really nice, for his first real hunting season on the river, he did a really good job, a fantastic job, actually. He's cutting the mold like I like him. He's not quite as big as I want him to be, but he's plenty big enough, and he's fast out, he's fast back, ton of desire, he's quiet, and, he's just a nice dog. And one thing he adapted really well is he'll dive for a crippled duck. Mm-hmm. He'll literally go underwater for a cripple.
Nice.
His dad did the exact same thing. It is the craziest thing. This dog is he's not quite as big, but I've never seen a dog to be a spitting image of his father. I've never seen anything like it.
Oh, I bet you love that. I bet that's
it's insane. It's absolutely insane. And I've never seen anything like it. I mean, he is literally a smaller version of Jet, and it's so fun because Jet was my main hunting dog before Flash. So now it'll be Jet's son will be after Flash. And Flash will be 9 in April, and you would never know it. He doesn't have gray hair on his head, and you would never know it. He's just a freak. And we had a great time. And we had some of our member dogs that hunted too, like Granger hunted, did a beautiful job for Anthony. Maury hunted for Randy, did a great job. These are all client dogs, and it was fun watching these guys. Like you got Byron Hassel, he owns Maverick, and Charlie. Both Grand Retriever champion, M&H's, the whole deal. They got all the titles, just like Maury's got, and Granger passed the national as a 2-year-old. So you got all these, a lot of these member dogs that we've trained, and you're watching them and their owners develop as a team. Mm-hmm. And it's really, really fun to watch because I'm going to tell you right now, like with Byron and Anthony, I could say you need to send that dog, but when you do that, you need to hop on your right leg, hold your left arm out. They will do it, and they're students because they understand that the better job they do of handling their dogs, the better and easier it is for me to get their dogs back into going and test again.
Right.
And it's great to watch them. They won't let them cheat the water. They'll call them back. They'll resend them. If they give them a cast review, they'll stop. They'll recall. They'll give a correction. They'll cast in the wind. I'm watching these guys, Byron and Anthony, do this. It's fantastic to watch. They're doing such a good job with their dogs. I'm super proud of them both. But,
do you ever hunt 2 dogs at once, or is it always just one dog in a blind?
No, we hunt. Typically, we have 2 dogs run at the same time. None of the dogs are in the blinds. They have these little dog pits that they sit in next to the blind. They're barrels in the ground, like these little lids. They can poke their head up and see. But usually it's 2 dogs at once because usually there's a member in town that has a dog. They all have dogs. Most of them have dogs, and there's a member in town. So they'll hunt their dog. I'll hunt mine, or I won't even take a dog. Sometimes Flash will stay home, and maybe Byron and Anthony are running their 2 dogs on a hunt. I mean, so it all depends on who's in town, but typically it's 2 dogs. I have taken 2 dogs by myself before. I've taken, Flash and Shaker or Flash and Vader or, Flash and Pearl, and they sit in each other's dog boxes on the ends. And if I get multiple birds down, I may bring them both out, send one, send the other, send one, send the other. Yeah. And the only time it gets kind of funky is when I start blowing the whistle, the handle, then they're both stopping. So
yeah. Right.
And I do the same, and we do that same thing with our dogs. Like Byron blows for Maverick, Flash stops. I mean, it's just how it works out, but it's kind of fun chaos to watch them all grow up like that.
Yeah. And I imagine with being blinds and everything, do you have temperature restrictions for your dogs, or do they hunt no matter the temperature?
Oh, no, I won't take them. So if the river's real slushy, I may take them. So they sit in these dog pits and they're warm. So there's hay in the bottom or straw on the bottom of them. lids. And I got this little burlap sack that stays over the top of the cage sort of deal, so it keeps all their body heat in. But if there's slush in the river or it's bitter cold, if we shoot a bird in the water, and we'll just walk out there and get it ourselves.
Yeah.
There's no reason to be the tough guy and watch your dog die of hypothermia. That's just stupid. Now they also wear a vest every single day. No matter what, they wear a vest to keep them warm. And sometimes we'll take the dogs just to take them, and they may not even pick up a bird. And if it's too cold, if it's too cold, the river is slushed up, and we're not going anyway.
Yeah.
Now, when it was, 15, 20 below here, guys are wanting to go goose hunting, and they were, but most dogs didn't go. It was, you have to walk out and pick up your own goose. Because I'm going to tell you, it was 15 below, and the wind chill was 40 below, and hypothermia and frostbite set in a matter of minutes. There's no reason to have your dog out there. I mean, you can walk out. If you don't want to walk out there to pick up your bird, your dog doesn't want to do it. So if you can't do it, your dog doesn't need to be out there doing it either.
Yeah, one thing I never do a good enough job with Georgie is I have in my mind I've got an outdoor kennel and that I'm going to leave her out there as it's getting colder to get her a nice coat. Inevitably, I always do a poor job at that. So I set her limit at about 15. That is kind of one of her Achilles, is that she does not, you can tell she doesn't like the cold. It doesn't know she's willing to do it. I mean, she's going to do it no matter what, but you can see it. There's been a couple times we're out, not even a 15-degree day, where we're walking through water back, at the end of the hunt. And I can just tell from her body language, she's just like, oh man, this sucks.
And it's cold. And she probably gets that from her mama. Honestly, her mama will go out in the cold water and do the water. But Flash doesn't care. He literally does not care. He'll die of hypothermia. I've never seen him quit on anything. So dogs like that, you've got to have a head on your shoulders and shut them down, or they'll kill themselves. And I'm glad Georgie's a little smarter than that, because she'd be like, yeah, I'm good. But
don't get me wrong. If the bird's shot, there's nothing going to stop her no matter what it is. It's in between the birds being shot that I can see it.
Yeah.
Well, and I've seen it a couple times, because I won't, if it's 15 is my limit, and I'm like, she's not going under that.
Well, there's no reason for them too. I mean, because how you hunt, you're on public and A-frames or little dog blinds. Them little dog blinds, once that dog gets wet, it is so cold.
Right.
The wind comes through it. You can't. Now these dog pits that we have, like the barrels, their body heat stays in there.
I bet it does.
Burlap over top, and then the body heat doesn't escape. Where you guys are open water and those dog blinds, that is so cold for a dog. People don't understand how cold that is. And if that's the case, bring them into the A-frame with you and put them little bud heaters on them and let them warm up a little bit, And that's another thing that you're carrying in, right? So
that's right. It's tough.
Too many people. When it got cold, really, really cold here this winter, it was funny. My phone and text started going off about, hey, is it too cold to take my dog? I'm like, yes. Hey, is it too cold to take my dog? Yes. Yes. Why would you even think about it? Like, it's too cold. I mean,
So on my end of hunting, I had a fantastic year. It was my best season ever as far as numbers and birds harvested. I wanted to ask you a couple questions about Georgie. She did a great job. She picked up 188 birds, which is really good for me, because I hunt in small groups. Yeah, I mean, my group, we shot 350 as a group, and I shot 132 of those. So I normally am just with myself or one or two other people. So it's not like we don't have the opportunity to kill thousands of birds. We went out, I went on about 31 hunts, and in that we killed 350. So it was a great year, and she did a good job. The vocalizations continued to be an issue. It didn't elevate. It's not getting worse, but it's still there. And man, I hate it. I absolutely,
you're never going to get rid of it.
I know. And I'm to the point now where, and those of you who don't know, I had a heart attack mid-December. And now I know the reason why I had a heart attack is because I talked to Chris 5 days before my heart attack, and he told me he wanted me to bring Georgie and hunt in front of him with Flash, and that kind of pressure to have him out there. That's why I had a heart attack. I was nervous about that. The vocalization thing, honestly, I'm watching. The mallards are not reacting to it because it's honestly a loud whimper. It's not a loud whine, but it is so embarrassing to me when I'm out and there's 3 other people with me and she's doing that. I can't stand it because if I'm by myself, it's really not that big of a deal, but it's embarrassing.
Oh, I get it. And that's so hard to stop. And I'd like to tell you where it came from because I don't. Isla doesn't make a peep at the line. She likes to bark in the backyard, but not and Flash doesn't make a peep. I don't know where it came from. I think it's just desire trying to get out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
and one thing I've wondered too, Chris, and tell me about this, is I don't do a great job of exercising her during hunting season. And I wonder if I'm out every day just exercising her like crazy, and then if I brought a bumper with me, because until she gets 2, 3, 4 retrieves in, it starts dissipating a little bit. So I'm wondering if I brought the bumper, if I exercise her more during the week, I bring a bumper, and like right at the beginning of the hunt, I like throw 3 or 4 just to get her some energy going, if that might possibly at least decrease it. Like I said, it's not super loud. It's not flaring birds, but it's still.
I think it might do the exact opposite. I think
give me some hope. Give me some hope.
I think it may actually make it worse because now she before the hunt, so now you start throwing bumpers, getting her more amped up, and now she's really amped up, and now she's ready to roll, and here comes the ducks. It may work. I would try it.
I'm going to try it.
It'd be really curious to me if it actually helped or it made it worse.
Well, you know what makes it worse? If we drive around for 3 or 4 hours before scouting, before we hunt, it's like it's that anticipation building up in her. That will always make it worse. If she's spent time in the truck, she's like, I want to do it. And the more prolonged delay of that, the more geeked up that she gets.
Is she in the back seat or the back of the truck?
She's beside me.
Oh, is she
in the passenger seat?
And it's funny to me because Flash literally lives in my back seat of my truck all hunting season, and you don't even know he's there. Like you go through the drive-through at Runza, and they get a burger. You don't even know he's there. Like literally, you don't know. Now, Vader,
Georgie's the same way in that aspect.
Yeah, but like you say, you're driving around scouting. I do the same sort of thing, driving around, looking around, and he doesn't even look up. Like,
well, see, when we go to dirt roads, she changes immediately.
It does. I think it's because I'm on dirt roads so much where I live. I think he's
pavement roads. She's like Flash. As soon as we hit dirt or gravel roads, boom, she's up.
Yeah, that's because you don't live on a dirt road, do you? Or do you live on a dirt road? No,
I don't live on a dirt road.
And it's funny because you'll see, like when I have my girls come and train with us in the summers, especially Tiffany, you don't really hear her dogs in her trailer until you hit the gravel by my house, and they go crazy. They know,
man.
They know where they're at, and a lot of them are like that. And a lot of our hunt test dogs are the exact same way. You'll have them in the trailer, and the second you pull off the highway and you get on the gravel, they can start going crazy because they know they're getting close to the test.
These dogs are so smart.
If
I'm getting up to go to work, I've got my work routine. Georgie doesn't move off the couch. If it's a Saturday, I can literally go through almost the exact same routine. And if I hit the door to walk outside, she's at my heel. If it's a work day, she just knows. She knows exactly what I'm doing.
Oh, yeah. And it's funny, Flash the same way. He sleeps in our bedroom on a dog bed. And if I get up and I start, I say, let's go, he'll go flying out. I open the door. He knows exactly what's happening. He runs out the front door, just runs around in a circle like a maniac. If I just get up, go to the restroom or whatever, he doesn't even lift his head. He's like, what are we doing? It's so funny like that.
Last thing I want to talk to you about is her blinds. She did a really nice job with her blinds during hunting season. Now, we shoot birds in. I'm kind of like you as far as I don't pass shoot. I don't shoot birds really outside of 30, 35 yards. Like I really want them close. So the vast majority of the birds that are landing are within the decoys or just barely out. So if I have a blind that is, let's say, a 75, 80 yard blind, I struggle. I get refusals as far as getting her. She's not trusting me the distance. She's like, no, I know that it's within 40 yards. Yeah. And so she won't trust me on that. So I'm getting refusals in that area. And I don't know how to, because if we go and train for it, she's a different dog than that. So what can I do?
On, right?
Yes.
So you blow the whistle, have her look at you. Now, if she's sitting there and she's looking around, like looking for the bird, goose dogs are notorious for that because they can see them out there laying in the cornfields and the meadows. You blow a whistle, they're like looking over their shoulder, trying to look for the bird. But if you blow the whistle and she's not looking at you, blow it again. You give her some low pressure on a collar, have her look at you. Then you have her look at you, and then give her like a nick, and then like a verbal back with your hand or whatever, like back and try and get her out of there.
Yeah.
And if she refuses again, she starts hunting again. You stop her, give her some more pressure, higher pressure, verbal back to get her out of there.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's pretty much what I'm like. She did a 200-yarder on one of the last hunts, but the number of whistles it took to get her to that was what bothered me. I mean, it's not that I'm not getting her there. It's just so less clean than what it would be during a training situation.
Training, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how good you are at it and how high a standard. It deteriorates training no matter what. But with that, you've got to hold your standard, use your collar, use your pressure, get her going, get her out. Like she needs to listen to you. And if you have to, if it's not horrible, you can close the gap too. You can walk out and get closer to her, kind of intimidate her a little bit. Yeah,
I did on that long one. I heard you actually when I was doing it. I was thinking back to my training out with you, and I could hear you talking about closing the gap as I was doing it. So I appreciate that.
And then they're like, "Oh boy, here he comes!" I better listen. You know.
I thought it was a great situation. It was by far her longest hunting blind because I just don't sail birds 200 yards. It just almost never happens. And this was out open water.
It's nothing for us out here in a goose pit in a cornfield to run a 400-yard blind. It really it happens all the time because they sail and die, whether it's a duck or a goose. And a lot of times what we do there is if we have some shells, I've actually picked up a goose shell and cast it with a goose shell so they can see me.
My gosh.
I mean, seriously, it's a long, long ways, and they got to run, you know, and you're angling across the corn stalks and the corn rows, and it's the 300-yard blind it happens 2 or 3 times a week.
Yeah, that's long.
And it's really long, and then, people are trying to handle their dogs, like my members and stuff, and you pick up a goose shell, and a lot of times what we do too is we have those Avery handler hats with the white on the inside of them. Mm-hmm. We have those in our blinds and our pits too. So if you have to handle, you can use those hats.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's great. This particular blind was I was really glad that it happened because the bird sailed, but it just died.
Yeah.
And it was open. It was shallow open water. So she could, it wasn't like ankles, probably like knee deep for me. So she could see me the whole way. It was open water. It took a bunch of whistles, but I felt good that just for the experience of, hey, sometimes during hunts, the bird's not within 50 yards.
Correct. Yeah. And it happens. And if you goose hunted a little bit, you would see a lot more of that, or field mallard hunted, which you missed an unbelievable field mallard hunt over Christmas when you were supposed to be out here.
Salt on the wounds.
Incredible.
Salt on the wounds.
Actually. So I wasn't going to rub it in, but I had to.
I'll tell you, I will give you this advice. If you're ever getting a situation where, your wife's not quite treating you as kindly as you'd like, have a heart attack. That will whip them into shape. I'm telling you, they will be the sweetest, nicest.
Well, if it takes a heart attack, then you're doing something wrong.
She was waking me up out of naps to make sure I wasn't dead.
Mine would be like, what's the number for 911? I mean, what was that again?
What's the number for 911?
How do you spell 911? What was that number again?
If she's in the background, she's going to come by and see a frying pan come out of the screen.
Oh, yeah. She'd cash in and head for the hills on her Harley. It'd be all good. So
she's got some spunk to her, your wife, doesn't she?
Yeah. Like on Elf, that show Elf, like, you're an angry elf. Look at you. Call me Elf one more time.
We just watch that. We watch that every Christmas. We watch that at least once.
You call me Elf one more time. He's an angry elf. Look at you. Anyway.
All right. If you haven't seen the Elf, everyone needs to watch it.
Oh, you gotta watch the Elf.
Moment.
It's greatest.
Yeah.
It's the greatest thing ever.
It is good. All right. So, do we want to end off with a couple Q&A questions here?
Sure. How long? Yeah, let's do 2 of them here.
Yeah, we've been running 54. Let's go ahead and do them. These aren't real long ones.
Let's
so
do these.
If you're new to the program, if you want, we do a lot of Q&A. It's one thing Chris really wants to do is to be able to address questions that you guys have. And the best way to submit questions to us is over on the Facebook group, the Flatlander Kennels Podcast with Chris Jobman on Facebook. So go over there and join it. And it's a great community, people asking questions, talking, posting, and so that you can submit your questions over there. All right, the first one we've got here is by Zachary Eshelman. He says, now, Chris talks a lot about managing your dog's career. If you haven't watched our first 17 episodes, he talks a lot about managing your dog's career. And this question is, how do you to determine your dog's career? Hunt test, field trials, meet dog, etc.
Yeah, this is a good deal. Zach's a client of ours. He's a new client. Got a really nice dog named Oakley coming through the ranks. And so here's if you want a quote unquote field trial dog, you need to start in that game. Like, it's easier to check down than to go along. And what I mean by it is like on marks and blinds and stuff. So if you want a field trial dog, then you need to start in that game with put every ounce of energy you got into building a field trial dog. Because here's what you'll get. A lot of these field trial dogs, if they're not too crazy and too wound up and you've done a good job on basics and they're staying and everything, and they say they just don't quite make an all-age field trial dog. A lot of those dogs, if everything is done correctly, turn out to be really nice hunt test dogs. And a really nice hunt test dogs, it can be a really, really good quote-unquote meat dog, hunting dog, right? So if you have any, like I always tell this to people, so if you bring us a dog, right, and if anything in your mind says, I want to run hunt tests, I want a hunt test dog, then you need to remember that in your mind and quit worrying about the up-and-coming hunting season. Because, and I always tell this to people, the best hunting dog that you ever seen in your entire life, they may not even be a average hunt test dog. They're probably a below average hunt test dog because most of them don't handle worth a damn. They don't listen. They make noise. They break. They do all these things, which in the hunt test world, you're done, right? So don't worry about being a hunting dog first. If you want a hunt test or a field trial dog, remember those games in the back of your mind and prepare for those games. Because even an average hunt test dog, an average hunt test dog can be a really, really good to great hunting dog, right? Because you can run blind retrieves, they're steady, they listen to you, you have control. They don't have to mark the greatest because let's face it, where I hunt, most 75% of the birds we picked up, you're having a handle on them anyway after the first one or two in a big volley. So with that in mind, if you want a hunt test or field trial dog, go that route. And what you're going to get in return is a really good quote-unquote meat dog or hunting dog. So if a dog can't do the all-age stuff, then maybe go down to hunt test and do that, and you'll get a really nice hunting dog out of that. I don't know if I answered the question perfectly, but you have to, especially a field trial dog, that's a very unique animal, and if that's what you want, go down that route. And you're probably, to get an all-age dog, you're probably going to have to go through a few dogs to find that one perfect dog.
All right. Next question is Eric Brandel. He's talking about joint supplements. When should you start to give them to your dog? There are many different supplements out there. Suggestions on which ones to give or which ingredients to look for?
So this is a really unique question because here's how I look at joint supplements. And I'm not a scientist by no means. I just train dogs for a living. A lot of these really good dog foods will have what they need in them, whether it be ProPlan or a nut shuck or whatever. They'll have chondroitin and all that stuff in them, right? You can give all that stuff on the side as well. But this is a supplement that you're going to give a dog that you don't even know is working or not working. Because I've had dogs go to 13 years old and literally run hunt tests till they're 13 and not be on one supplement in their entire life. And I put dogs on supplements who ran to 11, 12, and they ran to 11, 12 and then quit. You don't know if it's working or not. Now, what I do know what happens is that there's a thing called Adequan, which is for a dog that has some arthritis in his joints and stuff. It used to be a horse deal. Now we're giving it to dogs. That can prolong a dog's career on these bigger dogs that seem to break down their muscles and their joints a little bit better. Barley's on it. We have some dogs on Adequan. That helps some of these bigger dogs lube up their joints and that sort of thing. That's like an injection. But the supplements that you buy, Dasaquin and all these that you give them, sure, they work, I guess, but how do you determine if they're working or not? Because I've given them to dogs, and I've taken it off dogs. I've given it to some dogs. I haven't given it to some dogs. They have the same length of career, and they never hurt. So you don't even know if they're working. But by all means, if you want to give joint supplements, talk to your vet, and they'll tell you what you need, and you typically can buy it at their facility, at their clinic, because they're selling them because you are the person that giving your dog supplements. I think it's something you can't really gauge. And I don't know when to give them or anything like that. We give some supplements to dogs. We have clients that want, they'll give their dog supplements the entire time that they're alive. And I don't see a benefit one way or another. And I'm probably completely wrong on this. And somebody's going to be like, oh, you just don't know. You're right. I don't know. But I've given some, I have not given some, and they've both had great careers.
It's hard to tell.
It's hard. You can't tell. There's no way to gauge it.
Yeah.
There's no way to gauge it. But I don't know. But they can't hurt, I wouldn't think, right? So if you think it's helping them and you think it's going to help, then by all means give them. Right now, Flash is almost 9 years old. He's not had a supplement in his entire life. You would never know it. I think instead of worrying about supplements as much as people do, I think you need to spend the time and the money and buy a really, really good dog food and not let your dog get overweight and keep them in shape. I think that is more important than an actual supplement, because if your dog's overweight, out of shape, eating crappy dog food, why would you put bad gas in a Ferrari? So
right.
I think that you're better off doing that than relying on supplements, if that makes sense.
I cannot stand it when I see someone hunting with a fat retriever. It just
kills
can't
them.
Stand it.
It just kills them.
Like,
how many dogs die every year in South Dakota? Pheasant season, it's the first weekend or second weekend, it's warm, and they overheat and the dogs die. There's hundreds of them that die. And that's not.
It's not really hard to control your dog's weight. I mean, I would say if you
fall,
yeah, it's not that hard. It's pretty easy.
And most Labradors, if you feed them 3 cups, they'll eat 6. So it's not hard, like you said, unless they don't have a thyroid problem or something medically wrong with them. It's not hard. If they're fat, it's our fault.
Right.
So, but I think that the supplement thing is it's a hard thing to gauge and a hard thing to figure out. But I think feeding a really, really high quality dog food, keeping them in shape, not overweight, and I think that's way more beneficial than anything else. I honestly do. And I think, talking about joints, I think with young dogs that are up and coming, don't run your marks. Even the older dogs, if it's really, really muddy and dogs are sinking to their elbows in mud, I'm out of it. I want nothing to do with it. If that's a test, I almost scratch my dogs. It is because they'll pop joints in a heartbeat. They will blow a CCL. They'll hit or hurt a hip, and that environment is so hard on dogs. I remember we had a grand, and I think it was Mississippi, a bazillion years ago. We had a series called Mudzilla, and there was 3 flights backed up to run this thing, it was taking 15 minutes per dog to pick up 3 marks in a blind because mud was so bad. Dogs were absolutely exhausted. They couldn't do it anymore. And people that put their dogs in that situation, whether it be training, like, oh, they're going to have to run a test like that, you're just looking to hurt your dog. So I think as far as joints go, I think there's part of it's environment, like what you run them in, part of it's nutrition, what you feed them, and part of it's genetics. And you can't fight genetics, but you can do environment and nutrition. And it's just like hip dysplasia, environmental, nutrition, and genetics. You can't fight genetics, but you can fight nutrition and environment. So keep them out of those situations that they're really, really going to get hurt in, and feed them a great quality dog food. And if you want to give them a supplement, go ahead. There's nothing wrong with it. I just don't know if it works. I don't. Of all of our personal dogs that we own, none of them, not a one, gets a supplement. Now,
I'm glad you asked that question because I'd always wondered.
Yeah, Barley's older. Barley's 90 pounds and he's 9 years old. He's on Adequan because he has arthritis because he's 90 pounds. He's huge. Now, he's not fat. He is just a great big dog that used to run really, really hard, and he beat himself up. But all these other dogs, Elliot, not a one of them was on not a supplement. If I thought a supplement would keep them from getting injured, I would have every single one of them on it. I just don't know. You can't. There's no way to gauge it.
Yeah.
There's no way to gauge it.
All right. Well, I think that does it for those 2 Q&A questions. I think that's going to wrap it up for today. The next episode, we are going to talk about tips to getting your dog back into training form. So be ready for that. And remember to go over to the Facebook group and join there. You have anything else for us, Chris?
No, sir. We're going to call it a night, I think. So we've been talking long enough.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us, and we hope you tune into the next one.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining in. I forget my line, Elliot.
See you at the line and take that aim.
A long time ago. See you at the line. Take that aim. I got it. I remember it now. I remember.
Gotta strike this chord with the humble hearts. Bearing heavy chains and blue collar scars.